gang, 2020. Gang gang, 2020. Gang gang, 2020. Gang gang. Yang Gang 2020. Yang Gang 2020. Yang Gang 2020.
Welcome to the Yang Gang podcast. I'm your host, Ty Mania, and in this episode, we will discuss the presidential election alongside our guests, Andrew, Andre, and Nate. We will discuss the popular vote, the Electoral College, and what happens if none of the candidates win the Electoral College majority. So I hope you enjoy, and now let's hit the music, Andrew. We're back, people, and now Andrew's going to explain how the popular vote works.
United States presidential election, the popular vote is a total number or percentage of votes cast for a candidate by voters in the 50 states. The candidate who gets the most votes nationwide is said to have won the popular vote.
Oh, Andrew, don't forget about Washington, D.C.
Thanks, guys. Does anyone have a fun fact about the popular vote?
Since becoming a state in 1959, Alaska voters have backed the Democrat only once, and that was LBJ in 1964. And every other time, they voted Republican.
Oh, and Vermont has voted for the Democrats since the 1960s, despite it having been a 50-50 state before that.
So, only 5 times in history a candidate won the popular vote but lost the election. It happened in 1824, 1876, 1888, 2000, and 2016.
Wow, well, that one is fresh in my memory. So now that we spoke about the popular vote, how does the Electoral College work, Nate?
In the Electoral College system, each state gets a certain number of electors based on the total number of representatives for that state, and plus 2 senators. There are a total of 538 electoral votes. The candidate that gets more than half wins the election.
Wow, and how does the voting part work?
Each elector gets 1 vote, and the candidate with more than half the votes wins the election. But there's a catch, which is the winner-takes-all system, in which the candidate who has more than half of the one state votes takes all of them. For example, Pennsylvania, which has 20 votes, if a candidate gets 11 on them, he or she takes all 20 votes.
Wow, well, that must suck for the other candidate.
Well, Ty, that's why Nebraska and Maine are my favorite states. They don't use the winner-take-all system. The candidates win individual districts, and with more than half of the popular vote gets the 2 votes from the senators.
Well, Andre, since we've got this covered, I have another question for you. What happens if none of the candidates get more than half of the Electoral College votes?
Well, that's a good question, Ty. If no candidate receives a majority of the electoral votes, the presidential election leaves the Electoral College process and moves to Congress. The House of Representatives elect the president from the 3 presidential candidates who receive the most electoral votes. Each state delegation picks one of them to vote.
But does anybody know if that process has ever taken place?
I know this one. It's actually happened twice, way back in 1800 and again in 1824. In 1800, the House voted between Thomas Jefferson, John Adams, and Aaron Burr. Thomas Jefferson actually won the election with Aaron Burr elected as vice president.
Yeah, and what about 1824?
Yeah, I don't remember.
Don't worry, I got you covered, Nate.
Hey, thanks, Andrew.
No problem. In 1824, the House voted between Andrew Jackson, John Quincy Adams, William H. Crawford, and Henry Clay. The House voted for John Quincy Adams as they thought Andrew Jackson was a savage who can't be president, despite Andrew Jackson having won the popular vote and the Electoral College, but failed to get over 50% of the votes.
That's sad, and that's the reason why we should lay the smack down on the Electoral College system and get rid of it as soon as possible, because it's the worst concept in our government, and it's making us lose our freedom.
Geez, Ty, those are some big words. Tone it down a little.
Are big words, Andre, but I agree with Mr. Mania, because what's the point of the general election then?
I have to disagree with Mr. Mania over here. You know, the Electoral College, although it's flawed, there's some advantages to it. Like with how California and Texas have a lot of votes, the smaller states, they still have a say in it too. And it's also, it's a check on the people, us. So those are just some of the advantages I think of the electoral college.
I get what Mr. Mania and Andrew are saying, but I don't agree with them also, because you can't uproot a system that's been in place since the beginning of our country. There has to be repercussions for it. And I also agree with what Nate was saying about giving everyone a vote.
Thanks for stating your opinions, guys. I don't agree with you, Nate, or you, Andre, and thank you, Andrew, for standing by my side. But for now, we're done, because I'm really angry, and I don't want to get into a fight. So, guys, we've discussed a lot of information about the presidential election, including how the popular vote works and some fun facts about it, the electoral college system, what happens if none of the candidates get enough electoral college votes, and whether the college system should be abolished or not. But now, on to the important stuff. Vote for Andrew Yang. We gotta vote for Andrew Yang because Andrew Yang is hands down the best candidate from both parties. So Republicans and Democrats, we gotta stand as one and vote for Andrew Yang. And tune in next week. Not really, but who cares? I have to do that part. Tune in next week to watch when we do another episode of the Yang Gang podcast, and we talk about the 2016 presidential election and was it rigged or not rigged.
Yang gang, yeah. I want 1,000 a month, 1,000 a month. I want 1,000 a month, 1,000 a month. Let's get this bread, freedom dividend.